But basically you and Xenonids will be able of targeting different parts of the body like legs, hands, chest. Oh no. The time is now. Welcome to Foxbox O'Clock. Today we're going to do a basic guide on Hospital Corpsman, aka the Medic. I will start with a disclaimer that everyone has their own way of playing Medic, and that NewMed, the system that they are working on implementing, which has not yet been implemented, but they are working on it. It's not implemented, so this is going to be Med prior to that. I will go over the details of NewMed near the end of this video or such, just to give a heads up for if it happens to release soon. I have no idea when it's going to release, but I'm under the impression it's going to be the same sort of system that the predecessor of RMC, Colonial Marines on Space Station 13, has. So I'm going to go off of the information from that, at least from when I last played, which was a while ago. Quite a long time ago. Anyways, right now all I'm doing is getting ready for prep. Medics have their own special preparation room here. I grabbed quickly the standard apparel and then the vest. You can pick whatever vest you like. Each one has its own pros and cons. I like the light armor vest because I like going quick. I did pick Bravo Squad for this because I wanted to have a slower moving squad so that I could go over details more. There are multiple belt choices. There's either the lifesaver or the medical storage rig. I personally like the life storage. It has an additional line of storage space. However, it cannot carry as much as the storage rig can. Or it can't carry as big of items. There's various items that won't fit in the lifesaver bag that will fit in the medical storage rig. So it's a trade-off. But I like having the extra storage of the lifesaver bag. I personally switch it to storage drawing method so that I can just click on it instead of the small little icon itself. It starts with some basic stuff, but you can get more stuff for it as you go, typically for medical. Personally, I like grabbing at least one pressurized reagent canister pouch. I go with empty because I fill mine with GC, and I will show you a trick for filling it with GC even if there's not the GC tanks out. GC is General Cure. It's a mix of various medicines that are most commonly used to help heal someone quickly. I also use a medical kit pouch. These are more personal preference. It's not a bad idea to do 2 reagent pouches, or if you have something else you want to carry in your pouch like ammo or something, you could do that too. I do this because I don't carry a backpack personally. Now there's pros and cons to that as well. It's ultimately up to your personal preference, as well as the webbings. Webbings are personal preference. I tend to do the black drop pouches because I don't use a backpack. I have the drop pouches for my defib. And you're going to want, I would say, at least 2 defibrillators. But I'll show you where to get those later. As for the combat sterile gloves, I'm not sure. It says that it does increase the speed at which you can do medical procedures, but I go for the style. I don't take them, and I seem to do okay. So personal preference there. It's probably better to use it, but I feel like it's also a big old target for Xenonids. Because if you're wearing the white helmet and the white gloves, you're basically saying, kill me first so I can't revive people. So that's what you get from your equipment vendor, or the equipment vendor. Then we have the medical gear rack. You get for free this one at the top, and you're going to want to take most of what's in here. The defib, like I said, I keep it in my backpack. The stasis bags can fit in the lifesaver. Stethoscope you can just clip to your uniform. Pen light you can put on your ear. If you're using a helmet, I recommend it. I'm also using just a beret because of style preference. You're wearing a helmet's a good idea though, because the helmet has a built-in medical HUD. I'm going to show where you can get a medical HUD for your eye slot instead in case you don't want to use a helmet. Though once NewMed's in, I definitely recommend using a helmet, otherwise you might get decapitated. So the surgical case right now, it has no use. It'll be useful for treating internal bleeding once that's implemented with NewMed, but as of the time of recording, that does not exist. And even when NewMed does exist, I'd recommend leaving this behind for storage. The reason is because the scalpel step can be replicated with your boot knife, and the hemostat and fixovein and those steps, those can be done with the surgical line, and you can also use this as a cautery for sealing up the wound afterwards. So I don't take the surgical kit. I'm putting this stuff in my backpack because I'm going to leave behind the backpack later. I'm going to take one of the canteens and I will show why later down the line. So you want your stretcher, you want your roller bed. Even though you can fireman carry, which I will demonstrate later down the line, it's important to carry the roller bed because if you have to use a stasis bag, one of these, which will stop the bursting procedure, well, bursting as quickly for infected Marines, you can't fireman carry that. I don't take the Dex Plus injector personally, but you are welcome to if you want to. I tend to use the GC mix, which has Dex Plus in it for healing suffocation damage. I take most of these patches. They are very important. I don't worry about these things. If you're using a backpack, this is good to carry since it's an extra storage. You can put more medical supplies in there. But these patches, they work instantly. You just slap somebody with it to give a quick burst of healing, and if it's a bleeding wound, the trauma kits will seal the wound. These, the surgical line and synth graft, are kind of similar. The thing is that these take a lot longer. However, the difference between them is that they can heal up to half the damage that's on the body, half of whatever its respective type is, and they are unlimited. See, if I examine this, it says there's 10 things in the stack. That means I can use this 10 times before it's gone. The synth graft, while it'll take a long time, will let me use it unlimitedly. So in the heat of battle, you're probably going to want to default to patches. They recently did a change where these work even slower than they did before. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm going to move this here. And I carry a blood bag and this EpiPen, but I swap them out for something in medical. I'll show you that when we get there. For points, what you want to spend it on is really up to you, but I would recommend against buying any of the medical supplies except for stasis bags. Stasis bags are really valuable and they go fast at medical, but everything else, all this other stuff, or you could get first aid kits too if you need more storage. But most of the other stuff you can just get at medical for free, and your points can be spent on better stuff like ammunition, grenades if you have the space for it. I tend to not. Different types of fancy armor if you want. Special weapons. All this fun stuff. The telephone pack's also a good pick, because then you can be called directly. But personally, I tend to just do an ammo pack. What I do grab is a laser designator, because medics have in their skills JTAC by default, so you already know how to use this. It's good for calling down support or resupplies, and it's also good for just using to find wounded quicker than you could. If you're just using it for that later one, though, you may as well just get binoculars, or find the binoculars in the vendors down in the prep room for free if they are still there. Since I am Bravo Squad, I also like taking the engineering instruction pamphlet because you're more or less a support class, and this can make you able to support in more ways, like building basic barricades and stuff. This does cut into the points for the stasis bags, unfortunately. So I'm going to buy a couple here, and I'm going to check for medical for a couple of more, because I tend to like to have 4 or 5, personally. And I like grabbing a JTAC radio key. The reason is because instead of requisitions, this has requisition comms, at least as of currently, and it's also good for using in pairing with this. And if you can't get a hold of the pilots on the medical communications, which you access through :M, you can do it through the JTAC key, which is :J, and then U is for requisitions. You just click it on your headset and blam, it's in there. So this is what I spend my points on. Again, it's up to you what you want to do. You can also make your own mixes here with this pressurized chemical dispenser. So you can pick like what mixes you want to put in there. Just right click, take out your thing, put it in here, add whatever mixes you want. You can make ghetto GC here without the Marilene and Dermaline, but I tend to make mine in medical because that's where I make sure I've got those two, since I like having pure general cure. A useful resource for medics, and anyone really, is of course the guidebook, which you can access from this question mark, open guidebook. If you open this, you can scroll down, go to medical, medicines, and this shows you all the medicines, exactly what they do, and their overdose effects. For example, tricord overdoses initially at 30 units, but if you have up to 50, it goes into critical overdosing. Overdoses start causing damage. Basically, they start causing negative effects instead of healing. When you're working with other medics, you want to avoid using medicines unless you are the one that started it and called out that you are putting in medicines. You should say what medicines you're issuing if there are other medics. Otherwise, the risk for overdose increases tremendously, and you don't want to overdose somebody. It's not a good time. I grab a couple of tools to help with the fact that I grab the engineering stuff, just so I can be a bit more versatile on what I do. I tend to leave this out for whoever wants whatever I'm not using. I'm not bothering taking these supplies, they're welcome to them. I'm going to get different supplies at medical. You of course are going to want to get a gun. You are a combat class still. You are capable of firing, and you should fire if the situation arises. Your priority should be, of course, treating other Marines, but in the case that there are no current Marines to be treated, being another gun is part of your job. Shoot the bugs. Heck the bugs up. Now you may be wondering, why do I bother taking a whole ammo box if shooting isn't really the thing that I'm focusing on? I like using it for resupplying the squad as well. Sometimes requisitions might not be able to get supplies to you. Yes, this won't give you every supply you need, but it at least gives the general ammunition that most guns use, most primaries that people use, on the field quickly. I also grab a portable fire extinguisher. You can find one from this vendor here, or there are vendors in medical that I'll show you where you can get from those too. And I tend to leave it off because it has this cooldown, so you can tell that the safety's off by this little pen being pulled out. But like, if you see somebody on fire and you try to activate it, you can't use it until that goes away, so I tend to just keep it off and keep it in the bag. It doesn't go off or anything, at least not right now. I hope they never change that, because I will scream. Somebody took all the cardboard. Oh wait, nope, there's some. I'm blind. I use the crafting menu and make an ammo box, just to toss on my back. I'll put this back in that pocket. And then you can alt-click on the ammo box with magazines that are the corresponding ammo type to quickly unload it instead of having to right-click, fill box. Just an alt-left-click will do it perfectly fine. I'm probably going to miss first deployment since I'm doing the process of trying to make this a guide, so that's fine. Since I'm Bravo Squad, it probably will be fine. There are other medics anyways. And Bravo's going to be on FOB duty, so it's not like I'm going to be having to rush on my own back to it. If you're looking for a squad for being a new player or such, Bravo's really a good choice because it's on the FOB, the Field Operation Base, which means it doesn't have to go into danger as frequently. Danger might still come to it, but it's at least safer than the other squads in comparison. Okay. So our ammo box is full of 600 rounds. That'll be great for both my rifle and others. We've got most of our stuff set, so we're going to move over to medical. That's where we're going to be getting most of the other supplies. That'll just be heading to the left, far left. And sometimes I'll open these doors. If these doors are shuttered down, you can still get into the medical place where you're going to want to be through this way. I tend to supply from these vendors back here. You have access to it. Somebody already set up an epi tank, which I will show later in just a moment. I'm going to grab some supplies. The things we're going to want: a health mate HUD. Since we don't have the helmet, this will give us our health HUD, which is signified by this little blue plus. As people get damaged, a bar will appear next to it of various colors showing and lengths showing how damaged they are. If they are dead, this will be like a little lifeline zapping thing. A life monitor. Heartbeat monitor. There we go. I got to it. Got to it in the end. Green means they just recently died and you have time. Yellow means you're running out of time. Flashing means you are almost out of time and you got to work quick. CPR is definitely recommended if you can get somebody to do CPR for you, which is just done by help intent or out of combat intent, clicking on them with an empty hand and waiting for the progress bar to fill. And if it's a skull, they're gone. If it's a red flat line, that means they can still be revived. However, they have either closed their client or are a Xenonid now. Basically, their ghost is no longer present or being controlled by a player for some reason or another. This doesn't mean you should completely ignore flatlines. They still might be savable because somebody may have just closed their game or had their game crash afterwards. They might come back, but it's not something you should prioritize over other people who are actually present. Now, I do recommend having at least 2 defibs. You can get a second defib from these vendors as well. The reason is because you will go through these quick. Having even more than 2 is not a bad idea. Just keep in mind, they are limited, and medics can't buy them with points at their vendors, so they have to get them from these vendors or the other vendors in medical. There's a lot of them, so it's not too limited. Just don't take freaking 10 of them or something crazy. You will not need that many, I don't think. And if you do, you are not stabilizing your patients very well. So I'm going to show what I do for epinephrine. I am going to butcher the names. I'm not good at saying medicine names. I'm not going to pretend I am. So you get an auto injector if you take the life injector belt or lifesaver belt. It's good. It has 3 uses and it's instant, but if you're using it a lot, which potentially you might be, I tend to, since I'm using only 2 defibrillators and I want to make sure I don't run out of charge. What Epi does is it heals damage more when you apply a zap. So if a body's really damaged, because a body cannot be revived unless it is under 200 damage of brute and burn combined. Epi helps you heal them with your defibrillator when your surgical lines, synth grafts, or patches can't heal anymore. So it's really useful. What I do instead of taking the injector, though, is I take a syringe, which is also useful for removing overdoses. If somebody's overdosing, you can, with an empty syringe, draw their blood, and then right-click, and it'll have empty when it has something in it. You can right-click, empty it, and it'll spill it on the ground, or spill, it's one of those, and then you can keep doing that until their overdose chems have lowered enough. Right now, that is the only way to really lower the chemicals out of an overdose. The other option is just trying to wait it out, depending on how bad of an overdose it is. You might not need to worry about that. But anyways, I also get rid of this second blood bag. I get an empty blood bag and a syringe. So you can fill the blood bags, the empty ones, using a syringe and a reagent tank like this. So the pressurized reagent canister, before I fill it with anything else, I like using it as empty to fill this, because usually you have to bring an empty one or somebody has it. This is only 85 units. Our bag can hold up to 300, and we want to make the best of it if we're going to do this storage efficient way of bringing more Epi with us. So I'm going to fill my canister here with Epi. Going to eject it, make sure it's set to 100 unit transfer. Going to examine it. This is still on dispensing. You just alt left click to change the setting. Now it's drawing. And I just empty my tank into it. I'm going to get a bit more just to help out anyone else who's coming behind. Since it's already partially filled, I don't know the exact amounts, so we're just going to get kind of close. And that should be fine. So that's close enough. I'm not going to worry about the exacts. You just alt click it to set it back. You save your pressure container for something else. Now that it's set back to dispensing, I can use that canteen that I emptied out earlier and kept for this reason. Make sure it's on 6 units, fill it up with Epi, take my pen, or my syringe, fill it up, inject it into my bag. So I do one use, or I take one, fill it back up, and the reason for this is so that I will have a pen filled as well as a full pack. So you just empty it out, slowly fill up the bag. It can hold 300 units. So however many times you need to do it to get it up to 300. This is a storage optional way. If you want speed, use the auto injectors. The other nice thing about the auto injectors is they can be refilled at these vendors by just clicking on the vendor with the auto injector in hand. This, you have to do this tedious way of filling it. If you're not worried about using epi too much, don't bother with this. One pen or a couple of pens is fine. I just like having to not worry about supplies. That's also why I bring so much bullets. Okay, once more. Alright, so this is full. My needle is full. You don't want to do 15 unit injections unless they have a lot of damage. Sometimes purposefully causing an epi overdose. A slight one is not a bad idea because it consumes epi every time you zap them. If they are really, really damaged and you need to heal them, not a bad way of doing it. But I tend to set it to just 5 units. That tends to be fine for most of my stuff. This still has some left, so I'm going to set this back to drawing, fill it in, set it back to dispensing, and then just leave it there for anyone else to use for that. The reason is because you cannot use the syringe directly on the tank. You can't fill the syringe from the tank. You need a container like this. There's a lot of things that are finicky. You may be wondering, why didn't you just pour this into this? You can't do that either. In fact, you can't even syringe out from this container. There's very few things that the pressurized canister works with, which is tanks like this one and the dispensers like this one. So now we've got our defibs. I bring a wrench just for compatibility with the tools so I can help deconstruct stuff for Bravo. I do carry a blood bag just in case because there is a chemical mix that doctors usually mix, but in the chance that it isn't there or if I run out, I like having a blood bag as a backup. So I'm pretty content with how many patches I have. Sometimes I'll grab a couple of more, but this is fine enough. I want more stasis bags, however. And if I check here, the stasis bags are out. If I can't get more stasis bags, then I will go ahead and grab more patches. But for now, we're going to get our special chemistry mixes. So these pens, or these belts start with pill bottles already in them, but usually medical will make you some better ones with this vendor right here, the Smart Chemical Storage. There's not much of it in here, but usually they make the MB and KD. I tend to grab 2 MB bottles and then take out one of the bicard and 2 KD and then get rid of the kilotane. These are basically better ways of healing brute and burn quicker and more efficiently. The only downside is that the doctors have to make them, and they're limited stock. But since there's only these, I'll just settle with these. There's no FN+. FN+ is Iron Nutrient Plus. Those are the chemicals that help recover blood quickly, so that's why I keep the blood bag as a just-in-case in situations like this. This vendor right here does have the portable fire extinguishers I was talking about if you don't find one in your squad vendors, as well as some other useful tools. If you ever lose your health analyzer, you definitely want to get another one. It's not a bad idea if you have the space for it to carry a backup. So, let's see. Making our own GC. Usually, doctors will put out a bunch of tanks like this one. That's listed as GC. This is the chemical that I like filling my injectors with. But since I want to teach how to make your own on the off chance these aren't out, these 2 tanks here are usually out quicker. This is Mara, which is the brute med, the good brute med, and Derma, the good burn med. You want to examine it to make sure it's dispensing. You don't want to accidentally mix into these. It delays so much. So I get 50 units of each, so I have 100. Then I set it to 25, get 25 of each. And then I set it to 10, and I get 20 of each of them. So I have 190 units of this. It's a half and half mix right now. To make it into GC, though, I need to add a few more things, which you can do with this chemical dispenser right here. If this is occupied, there's the one in the squad room that we saw at the beginning of this tutorial. But this one's free, so I'm going to use it. I like getting... You want to get equal amounts to the Mera and Dermaline of bicard, kilo, and tricord. So you want to get it up to the 95 that those ones are at. So now that we have all the 95, that last 5 units we put the Dexlin Plus. Dexlin Plus works in minuscule amounts. It heals suffocation damage instantly. This is basically something that'll heal lots of burn, lots of brute, a tiny bit of toxin, and lots of oxygen damage all at once. It's great for an emergency. You just put it in your pouch, take your pen out, and then put the pen back in, and it'll fill it up. You can refill it from these, or you can kind of try and make the mixes at different amounts. You'll have to play around with it to see how you want to get it. I'm just going to use these since they're here to top myself off, because it takes from the chemistry, the pressurized canister when you put your pen in there. So I have 90 units in the pen and another 480 in there. You will go through this fast, typically. It's basically you're in the middle of combat, you don't have time to shove a pill down somebody's throat, this is what you're going to use instead. I'm going to check here again. They did make some more MB, so I will take another one of those and put this in my hand and leave it there. So you can wait if you want. It depends on what squad you're in. If you're in one of the front squads, you want to get with your squad pretty quickly. Sticking back to try and get more resources is kind of risky. Bravo squad, they've already got another medic here, I can see, because they have the HM. So they're okay, because they're not going to be on the front line like the others. So I know I have a bit of time. So I am going to go ahead and wait to get the last little bits of these medicines, because I want to show you one of the other medicines they typically make that is very, very handy. But until then, I will go over some other places where you can find resources. There are usually defibrillators set out here as well. There are vendors in here, which I think this is, yeah, this is just another storage room. If you accidentally grab the wrong belt and you really regret it, there are belts here. You can come and swap out your belt with one of these. While I'm waiting, I'll go over some of the basic meds in our belt. So MB, as a medic, you can actually examine it to see exactly what's in it. Mereline and bicaridine. This heals brute pretty effectively, because it's got 2 different brute meds in it, a strong one and a weaker one, but it heals it heals it faster than these medicines could do on their own, because the chemical system processes them individually. So it's definitely worthwhile to get these if you can. The KD is Dermaline and Chelatine. Same story as the MB, it's just going to be healing burns instead. Dilaven is good for toxins. There's not as many things that cause toxins on the field, but there are some things. The most noticeable one, or notable one, is boiler gas. If somebody gets hit with boiler gas and it's the neurotoxin stunning one, that'll cause a lot of suffocation damage and some toxin damage. The toxin damage, Dilaven helps treat that, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure this, along with like an injection of GC, can help wake somebody up quicker or keep them awake before they fall down. Because I have, after getting gassed by a boiler, taken this pill, hit myself with a GC, and not collapsed unconscious like most people do. It depends really how long they got gassed. Boiler gas is nasty. Inopravlin, this one I don't typically use. With NewMed, once that's in, it'll be a lot more important, but as of currently, it's not been very useful for me personally. It's basically heals somebody, but only when they're in critical. It's good healing when they're in crit, but when they're outside of critical, it doesn't do much at all. However, one fun thing, if you're ever playing human versus human, or have something else that you need to do, where you have to knock somebody unconscious, this is your go-to med. Because one of its effects, when it's overdosed, is it causes unconsciousness. It'll knock them out. So, it's It's a ghetto way of detaining somebody, if you will. I don't recommend doing it though if you don't have a reason. The other pill bottle is Dexlin. This is not Dexlin Plus. This is just normal Dexlin. It heals oxygen at a much slower rate. It doesn't work in small amounts. You have to have a decent amount of it. I tend to replace this bottle with the FN Plus because the plus stands for Dexlin Plus, so it heals oxygen damage as well as restoring blood loss. That's what I'm waiting for right now to get the FN Plus. If they don't make it, then I'll settle without, because we do have our backup blood bag specifically for this situation. So let's check those vendors again to see if they have stasis bags. Yes, there's one stasis bag. Can we get another? We can. Perfect. I like carrying, like I said, either 4 or 5 of them. I organize my belt a little bit just so it's easier for accessing in the heat of battle, because I like lining up all the pill bottles so they're at this top row. That way I can just take patches and bags that'll get used throughout the operation as I need them. The welder and cable here, those are a future thing. When NewMed is in, delimbing is going to be in, which means you might lose your arm, your leg, and if you're wearing a stylish beret, your head. So once NewMed's in, I'm going to have to actually put on a helmet. Goodness forbid. But you can get some things replaced with cybernetics, and these will be used for repairing those. But that's not in yet. Cybernetics are not in as of currently. Alright, FN Plus isn't in there, so we're just going to deploy so that I can show you stuff on the ground. You do have to be ready to adapt to working with basics. If you are unable to get these MB and KD bottles, and you're just stuck with bicaridine and chelotane, there are more pill bottles in those same vendors I just got the stasis bag from, so you can carry 2 of them. I do recommend carrying more than one of these bottles because you're going to be tending brute and burn the most. These other damage types, they're not going to be coming up as frequently. Once we are on the planet, I will show you how to use the medevac stretcher. And that will play into part this symbol here. Right now, we're in a dropship, nothing is allowed. There are various forms of air support depending on the ceiling, and this is how you tell what the ceiling is. Because when I step out of the dropship, we're in open sky. So if I let it sit here, it shows me what's allowed. We have orbital strikes, close air support, supply drops, mortar fire, mortar placement, laser designation, casualty evacuation, and paradropping. Casualty evacuation is the thing you're going to be wanting to focus on when you are a medic. Because if you're going to use the stasis or the stretcher, the medevac stretcher, it has to be in open space. If I go inside of a building like this, notice that in the blocked, casualty evacuation is down there. That means you cannot evacuate somebody if they are in here. The other important thing to note with the medevac stretcher, you have to alt-click it to unfold it. If it's in a place where it can activate, it'll have this flashing light. Now, you can right-click on it and toggle it to turn it off. If it's off for some reason, that's how you can turn it back on. If it's in somewhere that has a ceiling, it won't work at all. What the heck? This spot is apparently mountains. But when you're done with it, you buckle somebody to it and radio in, like over medical comms, medevac. I'm not going to actually send it because I don't have a medevac. You can use medical comms or the JTAC if you grab that radio to talk to the pilots, the air support specifically. And eventually it'll do a little animation of like hooks coming down and grabbing the bed and floating off. And then it'll go back to this sprite. When it's back to this, you can just alt-click it, fold it back up, put it in your bag. Typically, as of currently, when NewMed's in, there will be more reasons to medevac. But as of currently, there are only 2 typical reasons where you're going to want, well, 3 typical reasons when you're going to want to use the medevac stretcher. The most common is you have somebody who is infected. You can tell an infected usually because typically they don't have their headgear. They might have grabbed it again. They'll either come up screaming at you saying, "I'm hugged," or will fall down having a seizure, coughing, sneezing, stuff like that. If you see that, you want to use a stasis bag. Stasis bags are unfolded the same way. You do alt-click, it opens it. You click on it to toggle it open. You get somebody in, and then you close it again. Now, if they're on the ground and you're having a hard time like click dragging them in to try and get them here for whatever reason, you can move them another way. If you hold down left control and then right click, you can move around stuff you're dragging. This includes people. So say you're in like an area where you can't really wiggle your way to get them onto the bag, you can hit that control, right click to move them onto the bag directly. And then you can open it and close it. And once they're in the bag, the process of bursting is slowed down tremendously. It's not perfect. Oh, somebody's screaming about something. Hold on. Okay, no, we're okay. It's not perfect, so you want to get them evac. If you know the stages, it's good to let the pilots know as well. The stages are most noticeable. If somebody's just saying they're hugged and they're not having seizures or anything yet, that's early stage infection. If they are having seizures but no other symptoms, they are in mid. If they are having seizures, coughing, and sneezing, they are in late stage and need to be evacuated to medical to have the larva removed ASAP. Otherwise, they might burst, and that makes a new Xenonid. They get infected from parasites, which is one of the Xenonid enemies. Oh goodness, the queen is here. Please don't bother us, queen. I'm trying to do stuff. Here's a Bravo tip for you, though. Don't Cade hug. You see what that engineering's doing where he's like right next to it? Don't do that because the queen can stun you with a screech, and if you're next to the Cade like this, she can grab you over the Cade and devour you. Make sure to keep at least one space like this. I recommend more because otherwise you might just get yoinked, and that's game over if you get devoured by the queen, more or less. You're going to get brought to the nest, captured, tied up in the nest, and you're dead. But this is a good chance to show off the medical health analyzer. This is going to be your best friend. It pops up this little menu that shows you what type of damages they have, and when NewMed's in, it'll show you where those damages are located as well. So this person is slightly wounded. Not very bad, just slightly. So we can see that they have brute and burn after using our analyzer on them. So we can use, if they are sitting still, we can use our little kits here. It'll take a while, but it's free. This doesn't consume stuff. Doesn't consume any of our resources, and once it's no longer got that little brackets around it, that means it's treated, and it'll slowly heal on its own over time. This person's actually dead. See how there's multiple medics on it? I don't want to get involved unless I'm only going to use sutures. Oh goodness. Well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Okay, so they're working on him. So see how they got him underneath 200 and then used the defibrillator? That brought him back up. They also, if you click and drag him, you can see his inventory. They took off his armor because without the armor, you can defib. If they are wearing armor, you will be incapable of applying a defibrillator to them. These little Z's means that they are SSD. They are not connected to the game right now, but they will potentially come back. Alright, so our defibrillator, what they were using there, you just activate it in hand with either clicking on it with your mouse or hitting whatever the hotkey is for you. I think the default is Z. And when it's got this little zappy line, that means it can be used. If you examine them, it shows you how many uses are left and the battery charge. If you run out of charge on a defib, you don't have to throw it out. It can be recharged with the rechargers that are up in medical. Sometimes they get brought down here as well. Let's take a quick look, see if I can't spot one. I'm not seeing anything right now. There is a lot of sentries. These little sentry guns. That's great, but yeah, it doesn't look like we have... Oh, wait, no, here it is. I'm blind. This is a recharger. If it says it's powered and it's anchored to the floor, you can put your defibrillator in it, examine it to see... Well... make sure it's charging, I guess, and then take it out, examine it to see if it's charged enough or not, and then put it back in if it's not. Fireman carrying. I need a body to really do that, but I will practice with this. I'm not going to actually be able to do it with this, but I will explain the process. So to drag somebody, you hold down that left control key, left click on them, and you can move them around. This is slow, however. As you can You can put down your roller bed, click and drag them to buckle it, and move much faster. Alternatively, as a medic, and as a lot of different special squad roles actually, you will have a skill known as Fireman. This lets you Fireman carry people. So it's done very similar. You hit the control to drag, and it'll do the first one. Then you have to click it again to grab aggressively, and then you click and drag the body to you, and if it's a human, you will start a progress bar that at the end of it will put it on your back. You will be Fireman carrying them. It'll take up one of your hand slots, and when you want to set them down, you just hit the drop key to drop that item, which I think default is Q. But you can move, I think, actually at full speed when you're Fireman carrying, depending on your skills. The speed at which you can pick them up too. But that lets you move them quickly without the need of a roller bed. If you have a roller bed and you just want to use that, you can. If you have normal Marines with you and you got multiple people to move, you can have them take the roller bed. You can lay out the roller bed and roller them to safety. There's a lot of situations where you might want to move a body. Maybe you're on the front line and it's really hot. If it's dangerous on the front line and you don't have covering support, or it's getting way too dangerous, there's orders for fallbacks, don't try and necessarily treat the person where you're at, unless it only needs like a quick defib to get them back on their feet. You can pick them up, take them to somewhere safe, get behind a cade line so you can work on them in safety, where you're not going to get killed for it. Once you're in safety, you can work without the stress of that. You just have to keep track of where that little defib timer is, showing how much time they have left. I don't know if we'll get the chance to see that in this. We might. It's hard to say as Bravo, because I am playing an active round while I'm explaining all this. That's mostly the gist of general medicing. There are a few other things I'm certain that I am forgetting right at this moment. When these belts, when they are in your, these pill bottles are in your belt, you can just click on the bottle itself and it'll pull out a pill. You can change that setting, I'm pretty sure, if you, on the pill bottle, maybe you can't, I don't know. Well, you can right click to put it in hand if you're trying to get it. When you click on somebody, there will be a timer for how long it takes to feed them a pill. If they move away from you, that'll cancel it. There are some people who use hypo sprays, which is one of the things you can get from those medical vendors back on the ship. You have to get a nurse or doctor, I'm pretty sure, to make you more vials for it so you can fill it with chemicals that you want to make use of on the field. But you can swap out the chemical things and just jab them real quick. It works like this pen. It'll do an instant inject, no progress bar. It's real quick. That's the pro to it. It's not as space efficient though, and since I like being space efficient, I tend to use pill medicine. If I'm in a hurry and I don't have time to treat them on the field, like if there's the Xenonids coming down upon us, that's what the GC is for. It's a mix of everything, more or less. It heals quickly. These bandages, you can slap them and it'll apply it instantly when you have medical skill like medics do. That's one of the pros they have over these, since these have a timer progress bar and are much slower now too. Let's see. Some tips, I think I may have already mentioned it. May as well do it again though, since there's nothing going on right now. I picked Bravo so I specifically could focus on explaining stuff. Some tips, when you're with multiple medics, if you're giving them meds, call it out. Say like MB or KD in. That tells other doctors, this person has that put into him. Because one of the things also with pill medicine is when you take a pill, as opposed to an injection, which will pop up instantly. For example, if I go here and use one of these first aid injectors, the second I jab myself, boop, there it is. It's right there. Pill medicine does not work like that. There is a delay. I don't know how long, but there is a significant delay before the medicine takes effect. Sometimes I'll use a GC injection if the person's in critical, just to get them out of critical while I'm waiting for the pills to kick in. So that's something important to note. Let's see. Another fun fact. When you are reviving somebody, when you activate the defib and use it on them, it'll start a progress bar. Something you can do, very few things let you do this, like you can't use both sutures at the same time, but the defib lets you begin activating it, and while that progress bar is going, you can swap to another hand, pull out like your sutures or a bandage or a pill, and still apply it while the defib still works. You can even do CPR yourself while the defib is activating. Okay, here is a symbol for when somebody is unrevivable. This skull means that I can't do anything for them. They have been dead too long. They have rotted. There's nothing I can do. We can only send them up. If I had been here sooner, or if they had been brought to me quicker, we could have healed the brute, the burn, and then defib them. Sadly, it won't work now, because if I tried to use the defib, it'll just say that this person has decayed too much. So you are on a time limit when somebody's dead, but that's what the little heart rate monitor thing that takes over this plus sign is for. That tells you how much time you have left. Infected personnel. They need surgery. There's nothing you as a medic can do for them outside of getting them in a stasis bag and medevacing them, either by sending them up on the medevac stretcher or bringing them to a dropship. I recommend the stretcher because it's quicker in most cases. If they burst, even if it shows a little heart rate monitor showing that they can be revived, they cannot. If there is a giant hole in their chest, and when you examine them, it says there's a giant hole in their chest in one of the things, and you can see the red splatter on their chest, they cannot be saved. Their internal organs have basically been devoured by an angry worm. And there's nothing to fix that. They are a goner. It is unfortunate, but that's part of the game. You die. You might not get revived. Since there's not much going on, and I've gone over most of the basics, I believe, I'm going to discuss things that are involved in NewMed, which is not implemented at time of recording, but is in the process of being worked on. NewMed is going to introduce a lot of new things to the medical field. If you are not interested in that, or if it is still currently without a targeting reticle doll, no other weird meds that I didn't go over, then you're fine. You can not worry about it. We've basically gone over the basics, and you should be able to do medicing just fine, as long as you remember the medic rule. You don't want to overdose somebody, because if you overdose, you have to fiddle with the syringe to try and stop an overdose, and that won't necessarily be easy because it's a long progress bar. You just want to avoid overdosing somebody. And as long as you use bandages and pills when you can, when there's not another medic, you're more or less safe. In the heat of combat, I recommend these patches and your injectors over pills and sutures and stuff like that, because it'll take too long to try and do it. You're not going to get a Marine that'll sit still long enough when the Queen is trying to rip their face off to let you seal up their wounds. Oh, here's a good example, since there's a body. So if I get an aggressive grab and then click and drag, it starts this progress bar. When this progress bar is finished, they are on my back. I can move around and they come with me. Then I just hit the drop key to set them back down. Anyways, I got off track. NewMed. NewMed is going to implement a lot of things that the predecessor of this game has. The predecessor being Colonial Marines on Space Station 13. This is still a work in progress, Space Station 14. They are adding new stuff almost every day. They're constantly working on it. So things are bound to change. That's why I'm going to go over NewMed to hopefully help cover some of those changes that are not active currently, but will be active. One of the big things to note about NewMed is that medevacs are going to be needed for a lot more things, because a lot more things can happen to the carbon body, carbon being basically any of the marine bodies, the humanoid bodies. More stuff can happen to it that'll make it a lot harder to operate. The first thing that most people will notice, I think, is going to be pain. Currently, there is no pain system on RMC. Once NewMed is in, if they implement that, there will be pain, which is like a phantom damage that you can't see, but it causes Marines to be slow or fall down like they're in critical or damaged. There will be medicines added that will help treat that. If they use the same medicines as Colonial Marines did, those medicines will be tramadol and oxycodone primarily. Inaprov will also help minor pain. So you can use mixes of those to help counteract the slowdown and downfalls of pain damage. I use damage in quotation marks. The other thing is going to be broken bones and limb damage. Limb damage, delimbing, broken bones, all of that. With the new system, they will likely add, it'll probably be in the bottom right, it might be somewhere else. If they follow Space Station 13, that's where it is there. It might be something like what other servers have. I imagine some other servers probably have limb targeting. But basically you and Xenonids will be able of targeting different parts of the body, like legs, hands, chest, oh no, head, various parts. And basically when they damage you, it'll target that specific spot. When that happens, when that is implemented, you can't just slap somebody with a trauma kit or the surgical line, because it won't specifically be on the chest or wherever you're targeting. You'll actually have to use your health analyzer, and it'll show down here which part of the body is damaged. This guy is trying to offer me an egg. Yeah, that's kind of dangerous. Oops, dangerous. Anyways, when they have that, it'll show you on this analyzer various true, but I'd rather not take my chances. Oh gosh, I don't even want to think of that. Oops, somebody's screaming. Anyways, it doesn't seem anyone's hurt, so we're okay to continue as I was. Limb damage will be signified here. It'll tell you what parts of the body are damaged, and you will have to actually use your trauma kits and patching kits on that specific limb. You'll have to target it. And when limb damage is added, they will likely add broken bones. Broken bones, you will have to use, if they add a new item, it'll probably be splints. They might just do what some other servers have done, where the trauma kit and bandages count as a splint. Bone breaks have to be treated surgically to completely fix them, but they can be counteracting some of the pain and some of the slowdown with a splint. If somebody has a lot of bone breaks, they're probably going to want to evac because they're going to be so hindered by the slowdown from the pain of having multiple bone breaks. Another thing that will happen with the bone breaks is organ damage. So on your arms and legs, it won't do organ damage, but it will cause effects such as if it's a broken leg, you'll be moving slower. If it's a broken arm, you'll drop the things you're holding and cry out in pain. But if it's a broken chest or a broken head, it will damage the organs as you move around if you have not splinted it. The organs that would be damaged are, like if it's your chest, it'll be your lungs, your liver, your heart. These things, as they get damaged, will cause issues and could kill you if you don't get it treated. If it's the head, it'll damage your eyes, your ears, your brain. These things, if not treated, it could blind you or kill you because you need your brain. So they will likely add medicines. I forget the exact name of the medicine, but there is a medicine that is added along with organ damage that cancels the effects of organ damage for a while until the chemical's out of them. They will still have to go and get surgery. There's also chemicals that will heal brain and eye damage that might be made to help heal those damages. And those medicines actually do heal the damage. They don't just stop the effects of the damage, they will heal them. If it's heart, lung, liver damage, those damages, they'll need to be evac'd. Right now, though, there's no such thing as organ damage at time of recording. Another thing, internal bleeding. Internal bleeding is a chance to happen when Brute is applied to a limb or body part or whatever. And it'll be like the bandaging, it'll be localized to a specific limb, which will show up here. It'll be like torso, arm, leg, somewhere. There might even be multiple cases of it. What internal bleeding does is it slowly drains blood, even if there's no bleeding wound, and it'll kill you eventually, so you gotta deal with that. Medics, if they go with the same thing that Colonial Marines has, they can treat internal bleeding. They can't treat broken bones, they can't remove alien larvae, they can't fix organs, but they can treat internal bleeding. So that's the kit that I had left upstairs prior. You can also use the ghetto alternatives, which I will describe the process. Your bayonet will act as the scalpel. Your surgical line will act as both the hemostat and the fixovein and the cautery. So you just need these two things, a knife and the surgical line, and you can fix internal bleeding. It takes longer, it causes more pain. When they have the pain system in, you're going to have the person with pain meds in them, otherwise they're going to jerk and move when you try and work, and that's just going to damage them. So you're going to have to give them like tramadol and inaprov together so that they have enough pain damage resistance to undergo it, or oxycodone. Basically, end of the point is they're going to need something to make it so that they're not feeling pain as you're cutting them open. Another thing that'll be added with NewMed, presumably, if they transfer everything, will be shrapnel. When you get hit with a bullet, or fragments of a grenade, or even bone shards from a Xenonid, there is a chance of it embedding in you with the NewMed system. That will cause it so that whenever you're moving, you're going to take random bits of brute damage to that location because the fragments are jumbling around and cutting you up. You should be able to, if they do the same thing Colonial Marines does, to just take your knife out of your boot with like alt-click, and then activate the knife in hand to start a progress bar where you dig out shrapnel from yourself. If they don't do that, it can be removed from surgery. But that, I don't know if a medic will be able to do. Probably, maybe, I don't know. Ultimately, you just want to dig it out from somebody. If you're on help intent, if they have this, and they do it the same way Colonial Marines does on Space Station 13, when you helping intent, or outside of combat intent, you're not on harm intent, click on somebody on your team with a knife, it'll begin trying to dig out the shrapnel from them. So that's how you can help them as a medic in case they're a new player and don't really understand how to get rid of the shrapnel. The other thing that'll be added is blood types. As of currently, there is no blood type. Every bag is just blood pack. When blood bags are implemented, there will be O negative, O positive, B negative, B positive, A negative, A positive, AB positive, AB negative. All those blood types will be implemented. Most bags from medical will be O negative, which is the universal donor. But if you happen to have a different type of blood bag, you want to make sure you're not going to cause a blood transfusion rejection, which will cause a lot of toxin damage and kill somebody very quickly. The things to note is A to A, B to B, positive to positive, and O to O. O can actually go as a donation to anyone else. So for example, AB positive is the universal acceptor. Any blood type works on them. But say they are AB negative, if you try to give them AB positive blood because of that positive, there will be a transfusion error and it will kill them. Uh-oh. Oh goodness. Those guys just... Why? Those guys just killed themselves! Alright, well. Let's try and wiggle our way over here. Hey dude, let's get you treated for those acid burns. So I'm not bothering scanning because I saw what hurt him. He got shot with some bullets or slashed or something and hit with some acid blood. So I know that those will do. I'll check what's left. MB, so you just click on him, it does the progress bar, and now it's in them. Notice that it didn't pop up right away. That's because there's a progress bar. It takes a while. All good. It's a good idea to let them know when you're set. That way they can go about their business. May as well bring these bodies back to the shuttle. I think that mostly covers NewMed. Oh wait, there is one other thing that I had almost forgotten. Is the experimental meds. Assuming they add it, the same way that Colonial Marines has it. They will add experimental medications, which are basically something that won't be in the guidebook because they aren't a default medicine. They have to be researched by stuff that Intel brings up for medical to study. And these can do various different things. Typically, if you get a med like that, you won't know it's overdoses. You won't know what it does. You're going to have to communicate with the medical comms and ask, what does this do? Or whatever. To figure out what the medicine that you can't identify in the guidebook does. And hopefully the researchers who discovered it will be able to tell you. If you don't know what a medicine does, and you have zero idea, don't put it in somebody. It might screw them up. It might mess them up. I think that's basically it, so we're just going to do the rest of this round as a normal round. Not much is happening. It's been pretty uneventful because we've just been here doing our stuff. This guy's getting kidnapped. Goodbye. I mean, it's cleaning up, as you can see in chat here, just a bug shipside. Basically we've won. We're almost done. The other Marines have taken out the Xenos. Like I said, Bravo's a much calmer squad than any of the others. And I picked it specifically so that I could teach. Here's a prime example of a chest burst. See the blood splatter? That's a chest burst. They have been chest bursted. They cannot be saved even if they had the little line. And there it is. There's the round end. We've won. We didn't do anything really. But the other Marines, they pulled through while I went over what I was doing here. So, hooray us. We won. As a medic, most of what you're going to be doing is patching people up and shooting here and there. So this is the medevac stretcher from this side. They're trying to pull somebody up, but I think the bed must have been unbuckled or something. Sometimes they glitch out, and I'm not positive exactly what causes that. If you see a repeating animation on your stretcher and it's not taking the body, try unbuckling them, folding the bed, unfolding it, and rebuckling them in. See if that fixes it. Because I don't know what causes it, but I do know that I've done that before, and that tends to be what fixes it. But yeah, that's how you play medic. Everyone has their own variations. You'll have to play around to see what exactly you like using personally as a loadout. This is just what I like using because, like I said, if I need to resupply Marines, I can just be like, resupply, shout that, and then just set this down, and people can come up with their magazines and click on it to load up on it. It's great. But yeah, I don't think there's really anything else to go over. Outside of asking like requisitions for more supplies, usually they'll send down bags that are labeled medical supplies, and there will be more bandages, defibs, pill bottles, stuff like that in there. Sometimes they'll send down more pressurized reagent canisters for when you use up yours. Requisitions is your backbone if you are using less supplies than usual. I will say I've never seen them drop down hypo spray vials, so if you're using that, just be aware of that. You're going to have to figure out how to fill it yourself. But yeah, I think that's it, so I'll see you all next time. When the clock strikes, Foxbox the clock.